Greetings everyone, this is Tanya at Iodine. This week we're going to talk about wild carrot, also known as Queen Anne's lace. But before we get started, it's very important, this disclaimer, I am not responsible for any injuries or illnesses that result from your actions. You are responsible to do your own research and most importantly use your common sense. This information is brought to you solely as an educational guide with the best of intention. It is imperative to always properly identify plant as safe before you even touch it, let alone consume it. Use this information along with quality field guides, other reliable sources, and or knowledgeable forager to assist you. This is very important because the lookalikes to this one are the deadliest plants in America. The one in the center, the water hemlocks, are the deadliest plants native to North America. Now, I want to say they're the deadliest that have been maybe introduced from some other, tropical area. But these definitely in the center are the deadliest. And the poison hemlock isn't introduced. It's on the left-hand side, the illustration there. It's also deadly poisonous. It's what they used to give prisoners in ancient Greece, Socrates being one of them. It's a milder, slower kind of death, a little gentler. Still kill you than the water hemlocks, which is much more violent death, seizures, foaming at the mouth, they say. I've never seen it. I don't ever want to see it. We are not going to ever make that mistake because we are going to learn the differences between those. We're going to learn how to identify them, and we are not going to eat things that we don't know what it is. We're not going to touch things that we don't know what they are because, again, we can't absorb plant compounds and those oils, chemicals through our skin. You know that clearly, you can absorb. We have medicinal patches and things like that. We are not going to touch anything, correct? All right, moving forward, we're going to keep in mind that the wild carrot is something you need to know all the key points of characteristics to be able to identify. Don't just look at one thing and think that you know what it is. I mean, it has to be the smell, the look, the time of year, where it's growing, first year, second year. You want to make sure that you are taking everything into consideration. The way the leaves look, the way the flowers look, the umbels, you want bracts. You're looking at all parts of it. And you want to make sure that you know what a poison hemlock looks like and you know what a water hemlock looks like. Because I'm going to tell you, in the first year when those little carrots come out, the poison hemlock and the wild carrot look extremely similar. It is very easy to make the mistake. Also, whenever you're foraging for this and you're going to be digging up the roots of the wild carrot, make sure there's no poison hemlocks or water hemlocks around. You do not want to get these roots mixed up. All these roots are white. Yes, not orange, not purple, all the other colors of the rainbow, like our rainbow carrots they told us were heirloom. No, they were white. They did things to make it orange and other colors to differentiate them from the poison hemlock because both of the wild carrot and the poison hemlock did come from similar areas. They were introduced here into North America, and I'm speaking specifically on the United States, specifically to the Mid-Atlantic region, because there are other plants in this family, the Apiaceae family, that are poisonous as well beyond just these ones, okay? So keep those things in mind. If you're in England or somewhere else, they do have other deadly plants in this family that could look very similar. I don't know much about them because I've never seen them. Maybe one day, if I ever get to England, I will check that out. Anyway, that being said, the water hemlocks is very important to kind of be familiar with these. If we see the one on the left-hand side, it looks very similar to a wild carrot, which is on the right-hand side. I took both these pictures myself. I know where both of these are located. And one will kill you and quite quickly. And it only takes, they say, about maybe a little bite, an inch, of the root. And that would be enough. We are not going to find out. But the Apiaceae family contains the deadliest plants in North America that look very similar to the edible members of this family. We know we have edible members in that family. We have carrot, we have celery, we have parsnips, we have lots of good things over there, but we also have a lot of poisonous plants. So don't just assume just because it's in the same family that is safe. Absolutely not. You might have a family, you might have some really friendly people, you might have some not so friendly. Just keep those things in mind. You don't ever want to take chances. Take your time, learn this. Don't, get a little too confident. It took me a year before I was 100% confident that I could tell the difference 100% between a wild carrot and one of the deadly lookalikes that I could say, this is absolutely wild carrot. I don't need to, look any further. I go through all the steps as well. But it definitely took me a while before I was 100% confident in that. Now, one of the best examples for the lookalike, especially in the early times, is confusing the wild carrot, which is, of course, we want to be getting that root when it's not flowering. We want to get it at the end of the first year. So you got to make sure that if you are doing that, you're very familiar with the leaves, not just the flowers. Now, poison hemlock, it's going to be doubly or triply compound and very, very common. But when it's younger, it's going to look very similar to the wild carrot, especially when it's the rosette in the first year that's low growing. Now, I just want to make a point out the hemlock, the eastern hemlock, Canadian hemlock, you know, the pine tree, evergreen, if you will, it is not poisonous. So you'll hear people like, oh, hemlocks are poisonous. No, we're not talking about the tree. We're talking about a plant that's going to get, you know, 2, 3, 4, 5 feet, depending on which one it is. There's some variability there on growing conditions. This is not poisonous. It's just safe to touch, and there's definitely uses for this for food sources and medicine. Anyway, that said, the water hemlocks, there's 4 main species. I don't want to say the only ones, but 4 that I know of. In North America, we have the bulbette-bearing water hemlock, also known as the bulbous water hemlock. We have the Douglas water hemlock in the western, that's also known as western water hemlock. That's more going to be on the west coast. If you're out there, there's a specific variety. Spotted cowbane, spotted parsley, spotted water hemlock, which we saw the picture, that is absolutely here. And then there's also what is known as cowbane, Mackenzie's water hemlock, northern water hemlock. That is a little bit further north, but you might find it where you're growing. And I've definitely observed the spotted water hemlock flowering in the Everglades, so in March. So it can definitely have, you know, it says generally like May through September, depends on where you are. It's going to vary based on climate, species, geography, all of that. First off is the western water hemlock. Of course, if you're out on the west coast, you might see this one. And we're just going to move on. That's basically where the distribution map is for that one. But again, you know, they could have spread since this map was made. Spotted water hemlock is very common in the Mid-Atlantic states and the eastern United States. You might see this one. And sometimes you'll see it with spots, sometimes you won't. Sometimes you'll see those little leaves look like they were just outlined with a beautiful fine tip paintbrush. Absolutely beautiful. And they call this poison parsnip, but they really shouldn't, because there is like parsnip out there and they call that poison parsnip. That actually has yellow flowers, same family, but that can cause a rash, the leaves and stuff like that. This family's got some very upsy downsies. You gotta really know what you're doing, I guess, if you're foraging in the carrot family. It's the also known as the celery family, parsley family, things of that nature you might hear it called. And this is a close-up with the spotted water hemlock. This was a really good year for it. It doesn't always look this, you know, in my opinion, beautiful with the colorations, but it definitely did. I loved how the pinkish, purplish, reddish, you know, tinge on the end of the leaves. Very beautiful. I do not touch this one at all, like you'll see in a moment. But it's very beautiful. There's a lot of variability in the flower, as you can see there with, you know, the different stages they're in. So always keep those things in mind too. And this is just what the leaves look like. They look very significantly different in, you know, whenever you're looking from the wild carrot to the spotted water hemlock, but the flowers do look very similar. And this inside is going to be hollow. I've read somewhere the wild carrot is hollow. It is not. You know, at least the ones growing in my yard, which I know are that. But at the stage at which they are now, they're absolutely not hollow in the side. And don't use that as your only identifier as well. And again, very beautiful plant. This year, I went to see this one. It did not have that deep colorations, a little more on the green side. So don't use that as a, you know, sole thing too. And I've seen reddish colorations in wild carrot as well. But another way to tell the water hemlocks from the carrot is to smell them. And I want you to be really, really careful. You saw, like, I have that glove there in that picture. I don't touch this plant. Like, I don't want any parts of it touching me. I don't want it coming through my skin. But what you can do is you can crush it, you know, with a stick or a rock and just smell it lightly. Don't put your face all up in it and everything like that. Get the sap on you and, you know, things of that nature. Just be very mindful. Just get a quick, like, kind of thing. The hemlocks smell rank. They don't smell pleasant. You know, they don't smell like a skunk per se or anything like that, but they don't smell good. You crush a carrot, it smells like carrot. You can smell the carrot. It doesn't smell bad. It smells good. You know, I love carrots. But this is the distribution for the spotted water hemlock. It is all throughout North America, so it is very, very common. And then this is the bulbous water hemlock. Again, the flowering time is only going to be in the second year anyway, so it's a biennial. So you might not see it even flowering at all that year, so don't use that as your only guide and think, it can't be the water hemlock or poison hemlock because it's not flowering. These are just, you know, leaves on the ground. No, it's biennial, 2-year cycle. Okay, first year is not going to flower. And anyway, the leaves on this are a little finer. You know, I've never actually seen this yet because this is actually a little more Up, it's mid-Atlantic to the north, but I've never found it. So maybe one day. It's just not as common in my world. Now the northern water hemlock is definitely going to be much further north than me. It's very beautiful as well. It looks very similar to the spotted as far as that. And you can see how that root structure is just a little bit different. You got that stalks coming up. They're hollow out of the same rootstock. But again, you might see a single one as well. These flowers are really, really beautiful with these little, they got some yellow in them, they got some pink. Really, absolutely just amazing. So, hope to see this one day up close. Very beautiful and things of that nature. Again, this is much northward, really speaking, Canada and things of that nature. So, it definitely likes a colder climate. But you might find it where you are. So the water hemlocks, what are they? And why are they such a problem? Well, the size can be 1 to 7 feet. We know it can be in rosette, low growing in the first year. It is biennial. Part 2 is we are going to use absolutely none of it for any particular, no reason. Don't play with it. Don't burn it. Don't do anything with it. So water hemlock has a branched root system with tubules, while poison hemlock has a single taproot. And this just talks about the toxin in water hemlock rapidly produces nausea, emesis, which is vomiting, and abdominal pain after ingestion, typically within an hour. One suffers from tremors, seizures, and subsequent death. Identification is going to be hairless. The stems are smooth, purple streaks are spotted. That can be lighter or not. It smells bad when crushed, found in wet meadows, swampy areas. It is important not to forage near it to ensure that it's not accidentally picked or dug. All right, so poison hemlock is the other one. Now, this is the one that was introduced. They call this devil's bread, poison, parsley, spotted, Quirvane, which is probably meant to be cowbane, but where it came from, we have no idea. Now, this is very often to see with these horrendously just kind of scary, freaky looking spots, and it just looks like you don't want to be messing with it. So anyway, this is definitely what you are going to see. This kind of that single taproot, just like the wild carrots. It is definitely not something to get messed with. So we see some wild carrot on the side, some of those leaves, and then we see the poison hemlock on the right hand side, and we see that water hemlock in the center there. And poison hemlock everywhere that carrot is, basically all throughout the United States. This is where wild carrot is, so expect to see both of them. And poison hemlock has become pretty invasive in a lot of places in Maryland, especially Frederick, and a lot in Frederick, actually, Hagerstown, different areas of it, so expect it, as you can see. Now, this is, again, and when we see it, when it's low growing, it doesn't look as kind of scary with all the streaks and the colors. They come later. It's really, truly quite a beautiful plant. Now, this is the young, the leaves, the first year here of the carrots. There's a lot of variability there. Now, the one thing that we can tell with the wild carrot is it's often, not always, but often going to have a little single purple floret in the center. That's a very good way to identify it. You're not going to find that on a poison hemlock. You're not going to find that on a water hemlock. Now, keep in mind, you might see a little bug and you might get that confused and think, oh, this little ant is purple floret. It is not, so make sure you keep that in mind. Definitely know what you're talking about whenever you do it. And even small amounts of it can cause paralysis and death. The juice is highly toxic as well. Do not get on your skin. Medicinally, it was used in the past, in homeopathy as a narcotic sedative, because it will sedate you. It will sedate you to death. Analgesic and aphrodisiac. That goes without saying, I would say. They're mild and they're early symptoms of toxicity. So those, when they're using it in homeopathy and you're getting those things, it's actually just basically the milder version of your subsequent death if you have too much. Do not use. The stems are going to be hollow, grooved leaves, carrot-like, root, white, carrot-like, that single taproot. It's going to be hairless, stem, smooth as well, and smells bad when crushed. Tastes bad. Don't try that. Don't do a taste test, okay? Please, please. Outline of leaves like a triangle. Again, we talked about them being triply compound. And it's going to be found in waste places along bike trails, roadsides, alleyways, etc. It's important not to forage near it to ensure that it's not accidentally picked or dug. And another one, this is just one. There are many, many more. Just make sure you know wild carrot from the other ones. This is fool's parsley. I've never seen it in real life. I'm hoping to. That would be really cool. So if you know where it is, please let me know. but this is one that's possibly out there. But you can see the bracts that hang off of the individuals there, whereas with the carrot, we're going to see those bracts come on from the center portion. Now, fool's parsley has a smooth, hollowed branch stem with much divided, leaves, has an unpleasant smell. Let's, not try to taste it or anything. And it has, again, small compound umbels of small irregular white flowers, very similar to other plants in this family. And this is supposed to be an annual. And the entire plant is poisonous, though less so than poison hemlock, even though it has that similar compounds. Both contain, I'm not sure how to say it, quinine, but in lower concentrations. Okay, don't eat it. I mean, how much is too much? It's not something. It can cause pain, confusion of vision, and vomiting. Dried plant might be safe to eat. And, that's for hay and livestock, not for you. But, and it was sometimes used as a homeopathic medication, as in poison hemlock. It's ill-advised, in my opinion. But, do not use that for any purpose. Now, we're going to talk about wild carrot finally, right? Wild carrot is pretty interesting. I really like it. And as we see here, that flowers, those are starting to form and separate. If you look closely, you will see that purple floret in the center. And this is also known as Queen Anne's lace. Bird's nest is another way that they'll call it. We're going to see why. It's because whenever the flowers die down and go into seed, that is what it looks like. This is a very, very early spring, first year growth. Look at that little thing, how tiny it is. And look at those little dandelion leaves. These are just like little babies. But you can still see hairs on it. This is definitely a wild carrot. And there's more of a frilly kind of things. They don't lay as flat as you're going to find with the poison hemlock. And on the right-hand side, you see a lot of variability in the flowers. Some of them are already curling up into that bird's nest, getting ready to go to seed, and some are still fully out there waiting for something to come hang out on it. This is just some other things of the seeds as they are forming. It's a very beautiful one, and I really like this particular year that I got these pictures because I thought that I like the colorations in the seeds over there, and they just very, very beautiful. Again, more variability here in the flowers. These are all carrots, but so don't just think the shape of the flower. They can vary, and the same thing is true for the poison hemlocks and the water hemlocks. These are just some more looks at it. Again, it's not necessarily that flat umbel like you would expect. It does have some curve to it. In the picture on the right-hand side, though it's often that you're going to see it in a flat umbel. Again, we have those purple florets in the inside. This is just some illustration of what a carrot would look like. I'm going to tell you, you're going to have trouble finding a carrot that's that big. When we pull the one out later, you're going to see they're rather not sizable and not significant. So learn how to garden too. I mean, foraging's great, but gardening is also very necessary. And the parts that we're going to use medicinally and for edible purposes are the seeds and the roots. Again, make sure you know what you're doing before you forage for this one. If not, just look at it and go from there. It's a root vegetable. First year, you're going to cook it like a garden carrot. Now, medicinally, this is where this really shines. And this is where it comes into play with parasites. So we're going to talk about that. And again, we're going to go over the identification first. Stalks and stems are going to be bristly and hairy. You want that. Remember, the queen has hairy legs. Don't judge. The leaves are going to be finely dissected. Can be described as lacy. The flowers and flat clusters or umbels, often small, dark, purple floret in center. Not always, though. So don't use that as your only one. 3 forked bracts beneath the umbels. You'll see those bracts coming out whenever you go outside. It's going to smell like carrots. Do not confuse with poison hemlock, water hemlock, etc. Please be very, very, very careful. Where you're going to find it, disturbed land, roadside fields. Basically where you're going to find poison hemlock, right? Same place. So the root decoction, that just means a hard-boiled tea, kind of deal. Again, tea isn't its own plant, so I use that term very loosely. Tisane is actually the proper. But anyway, that being said, traditionally it's used as a diuretic to prevent urinary stones and eliminate parasitic worms. If only you could eliminate other parasites for human life, would be great, right? And now the seeds were used. Now again, they're anti-parasitic as well. And there's definitely, carrot seed oil is very, very good for the skin. Very has a lot of uses for that. Very nourishing. But in folk medicine, they use it for morning after contraceptive because there's been studies like with mice that it shows that it prevents the fertilized egg from implanting, because there's usually a few days in between while the egg is fertilized before it implants into the uterine walls. It prevents that from going. It can also cause an abortion if somebody is pregnant. So please do not use this during pregnancy. And, The rest you can just use for your own personal, knowledge base, but I'm not recommending it for any purposes. But the seeds are not something you consume if you're doing a parasite cleanse or something like that. If you think that you could possibly be pregnant or trying to get pregnant, okay? Don't have that in your system because even if you wanted to get pregnant in a month, if you had been eating it like a lot of amounts, this probably goes for like the seeds in Ayurvedic medicine, which is in the same family, arjuane, I think how you say it. It's on my website. That they pair with the jaggery. So if you're doing a parasite cleanse, make sure that you're kind of doing it mindfully and not during that time. There's a lot of the herbs that you're using during a parasite cleanse that are, not a good choice during pregnancy. Anyway, the medicinal properties that have been scientifically confirmed. It's antibacterial, so it's bactericidal, it's diuretic, hypotensive, means it's going to help with hypertension, help lower that blood pressure, cancer prevention, especially the roots, anti-cancer, especially for the seeds. So preventing is by dealing with roots, so go eat your carrots, even the garden carrots, come on, they're so good for you, just get organic. And the seeds are going to be super good for that, and they're worm-expelling, so we need to get rid of parasites. Parasites are very common, though you won't hear, obviously, mainstream medicine talk about that because clearly, I'm the anomaly. I'm the only person that has never at that point traveled outside the United States but got infected with a parasite. Absolutely, that is a fallacy. You can get infected everywhere. Think about your dogs and your cats. You worm them, right? Well, we are mammals as well, so keep those things in mind. All right. Anyway, I hope that this helps. We are going to go outside and check this plant out. Again, it's later in the season, so we're going to be getting down to where you're going to be collecting the roots. And now again, the roots of biennials, we want to get them after that first hard frost, ideally for all of that energy from the leaves, that it's collecting all the energy from the sun and, doing all of its work. It'll be transferred back down in the root for the storage. That's what a root is. It's a storage unit of the plant, especially for the winter, and also it's one of the purposes, obviously keeps it grounded as well and has other purposes. But anyway, I hope this helps, and let's go outside and see what we can see. All right, thank you.
Greetings everyone. Now we're outside and we're looking at the second year wild carrot. This is still flowering. These are not the best height because they're growing under a hemlock tree, and many trees do have chemicals that prevent things from growing, but it will give us a chance to look at the flower and see that little purple floret inside, and we can look at those bracts underneath. See those three parted down there. We're going to look at one a little bit up close. But you can see the side to side. You see those flat flowers there. Now when they do start dying, they will curl up and go into that bird's nest look. And again, we do have that foliage that's very lacy, very finely dissected. And again, we have those fine hairs. So again, we want to make sure that we're feeling for that. Now don't be touching things if you don't know what they are. But, you want to make sure you're 97% sure. Make sure it has those fine hairs. Then, if you're unsure and you want to crush it, do it with a stick or a rock so you don't have to touch it with your hands. Again, we can't absorb chemicals through our hands, so we do not want to be doing that in case it's a poisonous species. And as we can see here, let's see, not all are going to have those purple florets, but it is a very good thing as a positive identification if you can actually see those, especially if you're newer to foraging for wild carrots. Again, the mistakes of foraging for wild carrots is a potentially deadly one. Now we're going to go over here and we're going to see some that are actually going more into where the seeds are getting ripe, and we have the little bird's nest, if you will, going brown, and this would be a good time to start collecting seeds. Make sure you dry them out if you're going to use them for, anti-parasitic properties. The root, they have those properties as well, just not just the root. Seeds are, in this family, any of them are actually going to be very beneficial for parasites. And again, the safe ones to eat. Don't be getting seeds from poison hemlock or water hemlock. I'm sure they would kill parasites, but they would also kill you. And that is not the strategy we're trying to employ. You gotta be safe out there. Now over here we have a first year carrot. Now when we want to actually get the root for medicine or for eating, we want to make sure that we have a positive indication. You would expect to see the second year carrot around. If you don't, you might want to start thinking what you might be looking at. Again, we don't want to confuse it with yarrow, which is another plant out there which is medicinal, and we don't want to obviously confuse it with any of the poisonous deadly ones. Now I'm going to try with my non-dominant hand to, actually I'm not, because I can't do anything with my non-dominant hand. Try to dig this root up so we can actually see it. So again, we're going to expect it to look like a carrot, but it is of course not going to be orange because that was a created thing. There's lots of reasons for it, why it was orange, but that's a whole other story. See if we can get anything. Did I get a root? Yes, look out, look out. Impressive that is. Look at this. And I'm joking. I mean, it would take a lot of these. You know, when we have cultivated our vegetables, to get them to be rather sizable. Again, this isn't the best species. This is a very shaded area, so, you know, other places you might be able to grow roots better if you were actually trying to encourage it. But this is, in fact, a true wild carrot. So I'm actually going to take it in and make tea out of it, and things of that nature. Of course, gosh, it smells like dirt and a carrot. You can definitely smell the dirt, but it's because it has dirt on it. Anyway, that is what you're going to see. Little first year carrot. Is this the best time to pick this? Absolutely not, because we didn't let the energy from the leaves go down, but hey, we did. So for illustrative purposes, you can definitely see all those little roots hanging off it. And of course, you had that, you know, single taproot with some of the little roots coming out. And it's very tender, you know, very flexible, very pliable. This is not what we would see with the second year. It would be kind of, you know, dry and kind of tough. But again, we are dealing with our first year carrot over here. So we collected that. It's growing in a safe area with other plants that I know what they are, and it's growing in my yard. So we know that there's no herbicides, pesticides, fungicides, anything like that put into this yard. Over here we'll see some additional specimens growing. Yes, I have a lot of wild carrot growing. And over here we have some better clusters of the first year. Here we have some impressive dandelions. And over here there are some seriously, like these are ridiculously tall. Now this would be a really good area to collect the root because of how tall these are. These are as tall as up to my shoulders. And down through here we have some of that first year growing. And it's growing with safe things, you know, like dandelions and wood sorrel and plantain and self-nail and some other things like that, the pound-line Susans. Here we have more of these are a little low growing because they got mowed down early on, so they didn't have that big of a chance to grow undisturbed like these ones did. So this would be a really good seed collection as well to get these. I ate some of these last week and they were quite, you know, taste like, you know, seeds. Anyway, I hope this helped with your identification of wild carrot. Again, you have to make sure you're doing positive identification. Is very essential for this plant. There are lots of poisonous deadly lookalikes in this family that look very similar. Do not make the mistake of only a small bite. Remember we saw our little carrot? That's all it would take. A little baby carrot. Maybe just a little bite of it. They say the size of your thumb. You know, you'd have to get a big root and things of that nature. So you do not want to make that mistake. Be safe out there. Be kind to yourself. Be kind to others. And all of that. Sorry about the noise from the air conditioner from next door. But that is out of my control. Alright. Peace and love. Subscribe. Like. All that jazz. Hope this helps with your identification and things of that nature. Alright. Hit me up with a comment if you have any questions. Alright. Peace and love, everybody.